Hello BookTube, welcome back to Lady Lovestead Reads. In this video I'm sharing with you my top 3 books of the year in both fiction and nonfiction. Before we get into it, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined me for my holiday party yesterday. It was Monday the 27th. I did 12 hours of reading sprints, bookish games, Mad Libs, roller coasters, and I had friends joining me as hosts along the way, and so many of you were there in the chat keeping me company as well. It was such a fun time. Thank you so much for being there and making it a great time. I do plan to do it again next year, and I've already got ideas for things we can do in terms of games and stuff for next year. Other announcements relevant to what we do here at the Lovestead: Middle Grade Monthly, a book club focused on middle grade literature, hosted by Jade at Jade Reads, and Gavin, How to Train Your Gavin, posted their January, February, and March selections this week. I'm very excited. I hope you all can join the club. They're so great. They're literally the middle grade experts here on BookTube, and I've had such a fun time with their club in 2021. Really looking forward to more reads in 2022. So they selected The Hat Makers by Tamsin Merchant for January. I'll leave their information in the dialogue description box down below. I'm also going to be hosting my first read-along in February. My birthday is in February, and I thought a fun way to celebrate would be to select one of my favorite books of all time and do a read-along of that book throughout the month. And I think this might become a tradition at the Lovestead as well, the annual Lovestead read-along. So the book I've selected for our first inaugural read-along is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. This is a thriller, but it's also a contemporary, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. It is a multimedia story, so there are like newspaper articles and website clips, etc. throughout the book. I'll talk more about it in my announcement video, which will be coming up soon. And then another thing to keep on your radar is in June, I will be hosting my first readathon. It'll be a month-long team-based readathon, competitive. And it will be the Pretty Little Liars readathon. I'm still getting all the wheels in motion for it. I'll have more information on that to come as well, but I'm really excited. So let's get into the actual topic of today's video, shall we? So today I wanted to share with you my top 3 books of the year in 2021 in both fiction and nonfiction. These are not necessarily books that were released in 2021. They're more so books that I read and that really impacted me and that I absolutely loved out of all the books that I loved in the year. So, first, nonfiction. I don't own all of the books. Does that mean I failed at BookTube? I failed at BookTube. In third place, the runner-up is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is a work that is part memoir and part historical documentation of an indigenous culture in the United States and Canada. And the title suggests that it focuses on sweetgrass, and a lot of the book does focus on the tradition of sweetgrass. Robin Wall Kimmerer is also a scientist, and so she talks about her experience of being a scientist in a Western world and how unaccepting the Western world is of her more indigenous beliefs and her indigenous culture. And she really explains an interesting way of how she merges those two areas of inquiry into something that ends up working out really well for her. And in the same way that she merges those areas of inquiry of like Western science versus indigenous science into one in her professional life, this book also does a nice job of merging together memoir style writing and then more social critical analysis. So really loved this book. Some of the concepts that I like the most from it is the concept of the honorable harvest, where you give back as much as you take, basically. Wendigo economics was another really interesting concept that she touched on. So that would be third place or the runner-up. In second place for nonfiction this year is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. I was lucky enough to see Robin DiAngelo speak at my place of work, and she was a really interesting person, and her speech really gave me a lot of insight into her book. And this book is about coming to terms with your own internalized racism as a white person. I found it really helpful, and one of the most important takeaways from this book was how we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with our own internalized racism, because everybody has internalized racism in some way, shape, or form. We all have these ideas and concepts of different groups of people that exist in society, and she breaks it down in such a way that makes it a really practical and easily applied process of figuring out like those own internal issues that we have and doing that work ourselves. And I like that she doesn't put the onus of work on people of color, that the onus of work to break down racism is on white people. And she gives us some ways and processes of doing that, and it really does start at an individual level and at your own internal work that you do on it. So I know there's some controversy about the book, and some people like it, some people hate it. Think what you want of it. It doesn't matter to me. If you like the book, great. If you found it controversial, that's fine too. But for me, I found this book really helpful and really impactful. And in first place for nonfiction is Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chin. This is such a good book. Not only does Angela Chin discuss asexuality and the different identities within the asexual spectrum, but it's also just a really interesting look at how we are in relationship with others. How romance and sexuality don't have to be connected, that they can be separate, and that we can have relationships that interact with those components of romance versus intimacy versus sexuality in different ways. And that any kind of combination of relationship that brings you happiness and peace and that's consensual and respectful and healthy is a good thing. And you don't have to have that traditional fall in love, feel romantic, physical intimacy standard of relationship. And whether you're homosexual, heterosexual, pansexual, etc., that sexuality is not necessarily a required component of having a long-term and intimate relationship with another person. And it just, it was so good. I really think that she kind of puts, she kind of flips our understanding of relationships on its head. And it makes us think about relationships more like puzzle pieces that we fit together rather than like magnets, if that makes sense. Like a magnet, you have two holes that come together to make one, but with a puzzle, you've got a lot of different pieces and parts that are fitting together in different ways to create a whole picture. And I feel like it just could be really paradigm shifting for society if everybody read this book. Let's move on to fiction, and I don't have any of these books. Again, I have failed BookTube because I only own one of my favorite books of the year. Am I doing this right? Whew, okay, for fiction. In third place, the runner-up is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I tried reading The Goldfinch a few years back. It is a very long book, and I got quite fatigued reading it. So this year I picked it up on audiobook, and that was the kicker. I made it through the book on audiobook, and I absolutely loved this story. This story is about a young boy who loses his mother in a very tragic way, and by a certain set of circumstances, he has a painting that should be in a museum, and the painting is called The Goldfinch. And the story is about this boy. It's a Bildungsroman, a coming-to-age story, and he takes this painting with him throughout his lifespan. He experiences so much in his life. He lives all over the place. And it just, the way that everything comes together in the end and the way that everything builds and culminates in the end is just so, so good. I love the discussions that this book encourages you to have about art, the meaning of art, the meaning of beauty, the purpose of beauty in life, about honesty, and about what is good, what are the gray areas of good versus not good, and who does good versus not good in the gray areas within that. And it's just, it's so good. If you can make it through the book, it's worth it in the end. It's one of those books where there's a spot in the middle that gets a little slow, but if you can just make it through that, it'll come together and it'll be worth it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. In second place this year, it's actually the first book that I read in 2021, and that is We Are Not From Here by Jenny Torres Sanchez. This is a young adult contemporary, and it's about 3 kids, they're teenagers, who try to go from Guatemala and into the United States via Lovestead, which is a train that basically takes them through the desert, and they climb on top of the train, and it is so powerful. I cried so hard at one point in this book. I had to put it down, and I immediately got online and donated some money to various charities in the United States working with immigrants from South America, especially those who are coming up from that process. And it's powerful because you know there are actual people who are going through that every single day. And it really shows the way that we fail immigrants in the United States. We fail them. We fail them every single day. And it, you know, yeah, that book, it's one of the most powerful books that I have ever read. And I highly, highly recommend it. But do check your trigger warnings before going into it. The best work of fiction that I read in 2021 was My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This book is about a woman, and when she was a child, she has an inappropriate relationship with her teacher at a boarding school. And there's a dual timeline in this where it starts in doesn't start in 2017, but one of the timelines is 2017, kind of at the height of the Me Too movement, when women are coming out and talking about how they've been abused, and other women who were abused by the same teacher are coming out and saying that they were abused, and they're pressuring Vanessa to also talk about her relationship with him. But she does not want to, because she doesn't believe that she was abused. And it's such a good look at how complex these issues are. They're so layered. It's not just simply victim and perpetrator. The victims are severely brainwashed. In this book, we get to see how the teacher grooms Vanessa and how it leads her to just decades of confusion and conflicting feelings about what happened. She really doesn't think that she was abused. She believes that they were in love, and she holds on to that belief for a very long time. And it's such a good book, so well written, so well crafted, especially in the ways it deals with the dual timeline and in the characterization. And again, it's a book where you need to check your trigger warnings, but if you can handle the subject matter, I highly recommend it. Alright, those were my top 3 books of 2021 in fiction and nonfiction. What were your favorite works of fiction or nonfiction? Let me know in the comments down below. If you just want to let me know that you're here, leave some sort of celebration emoji as we celebrate the new year. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you wish. Bye!